Jananam sukadham maranam karunam milanam maduram smaranam karunam kalavashadiha sakalam karunam samayadipate akilam karunam. Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
So I'd like to say what a pleasure it is to be with you again.
I caught you in India.
Yes, we caught each other in India, and before that had the opportunity years ago to have a dialogue at the synagogue. It is remarkable everything you have done in the interim, as it was everything you had done before. I was listening to the parade of influentials, and all I want to say is it's much more impressive to be among the most influential people in India, because there are only about 15 Jews, but there are a billion Indians. So to be among the 50 most influential people in India really is an achievement worth noting. What strikes me, and the first thing that I want to ask you about before I get into specifics, is the enormous range of the things that you are both passionate about and influence, that go from, even though all the source may be internal, but they're very much about the world, about the environment, about human flourishing, about poverty, about all the, what we think of as social causes, and therefore in some sense external, but primarily, of course, your life is about the internal life. So can you tell us how it is, first, that you have such a range, and second, is there anything that you say no to?
Well, I have no many passions. My passion is very one-pointed. My passion is for life and everything related to life. Till now, I've not done anything not related to life. So, it's very unifocus, just life. When you handle life, there are many aspects. Different people are engaged with life in different ways, so inevitably you get engaged with all that. Do I say no to anything? Time and resource makes me say no to many things. Unfortunately, I would not like to say no to anything, but time and resources make you say no to many things that you would like to do. What would you like to do? My thing is just this: we as a generation of people, in many ways or in every way, we are the most empowered generation ever. Well, just 100 years ago, with the same capabilities, like all the ladies are focusing their phones on me, if they had just this one thing 100 years ago, people would think you're superhuman, yes or no? Hello? If you had the same phone 100 years ago, you could claim that I'm a superhuman being, you could claim you're the messenger or himself, people would have believed. Because that is how empowered we are. So when there is such an empowerment, my intention is, this is our time on this planet. We must make this the best time ever, because we are empowered like no other generation before. Our survival is better organized than ever before. If we don't make this happen, I think it's a crime. Just to avoid the crime, doing whatever I can.
We spoke about the fact earlier that same empowerment is not only an empowerment for good, that the same force of technology enables people to have a tremendous destructive force. And it is that sort of vector between the two that you spend your life trying to edge towards the empowerment for good. But I wonder if you think of technology when you imagine it and speak about it as more a force for good than evil, or a double-edged sword?
It is definitely a double-edged sword. More than saying it's a double-edged sword, it depends on in whose hands it is. It's a tremendous empowerment. But depending on who is holding it right now, accordingly it'll have its consequences. So who should hold it is a question. I feel the most important thing to be done on the planet right now is to move people from compulsive behavior to a conscious behavior. If only they were conscious, well, a whole lot of these things will just vanish tomorrow morning. It's just that they're compulsive about everything. Their thoughts, their beliefs, their emotions, their ideologies are all compulsive. Because of this compulsiveness, they will do things that you cannot imagine human beings can do to each other.
So if I have the impulse to check my phone as you're saying that…
You're supposed to switch it off.
Yes, I'm the victim of compulsive behavior. Well, so I think that this is a wonderful place to actually start a spiritual dialogue, is the issue of compulsive behavior. Because there are compulsions that rule our everyday life in small ways. I know people that wash their hands hundreds of times a day, or check their phone.
What's their profession?
What's their profession? It is irrelevant what their profession is. Compulsions know of no external reasons, they just are. Or they check their phones all the time. And I wonder if you see that behavior as, in microcosm, the same kind of behavior that causes people in larger ways to do truly bad things in the world. Is compulsion a through line from small to bad?
See, compulsiveness is a certain security. When human beings seek security, they will seek familiar terrain. Yes. When you seek familiar terrain, you want to go around on the same place, that's compulsiveness. The moment you seek security in your life, you will become compulsive. There's no other way.
Most of the people I know are pretty insecure, though.
Constant search of security.
The people who are here are seeking you out, I think, in part because you are essentially different from that which they know. And so there is also this desire in people to find the new and the different and the thing which makes them a little bit off balance so that they can grow. No?
Yes, see, within a human being, there are two fundamental forces of nature working. One dimension of nature is instinct of self-preservation, which will always seek security. You want to build walls of security around yourself. The walls that you build for self-preservation, before you know what's happening to you, they become the walls of self-imprisonment. So, in search of security, people try to create certainty. Certainty is only possible in death. Life is never certain. The moment they seek certainty, without knowing why, their face becomes grave. That's a good word, you know. It's a pose for the grave. Yes. So a whole lot of people, if you just go out on the streets, well, most of the people are well-to-do. Even those who are homeless are reasonably well-nourished compared to the rest of the world. Pretty well-nourished, I would say. So people are driving their dream cars with a grave face, like it's the end of the world. When you look at them, you think maybe tomorrow is damnation day or something, because their face speaks like world is going to end. That's the kind of expression they have on their face. Why this is happening is, these two dimensions are not against each other. That is, there is one dimension which is seeking self-preservation. There's another dimension within you which has a longing to expand. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are, you want to be something more and something more. Even if I make you the king of this planet, still you will seek the stars and the galaxies. This is the nature of the human being. So there is one dimension of you which is seeking security, there's another dimension of you which is seeking limitless expansion. So these two things within the human intellect has become a conflicting process, but existentially they are not conflicting, because when we talk about preservation or self-preservation, the only thing that needs to be preserved about any of you is your body. Because if you break it, you can't recreate it. So we must preserve this, it's important. But suppose today I trample on all your thoughts, your emotions, your ideas, your beliefs, your philosophies, everything, I break it right now. What's your problem? Next moment you can create a whole set of everything. But right now if I step on your thought or emotion, the pain that you go through is much more than when I step on your foot, isn't it? And that is because your identity has become so physical. You have turned your thoughts and emotions, everything like physical existence. Now, everything in you wants to build a wall, not just physical self-preservation, you want to preserve your thought, you want to preserve your emotion. You could as well be in the grave, I'm saying. You'll be pretty well preserved. You could have gone to Egypt. You know, some of them are preserved for 1,000 years. So preservation is only for the physicality, we have to protect this body, there is no other way. But why should your thought, emotion, ideologies, beliefs need to be protected? Every day if they're trampled down, tomorrow you can come with a fresh set of everything, isn't it so? But no, we have made such investments.
But one of the ways, and this goes back to the beginning of what you were saying about the grave, one of the ways that you play with such ideas is through laughter. That I think a grave guru would be a contradiction in terms. In fact, the Irish poet Yeats said the worst thing about some men is when they're not drunk, they're sober. And if you are too serious and you don't have that playful aspect, I think it is harder to change the way you think and look at the world, and I don't want to miss that part of the way you presented it, because the lightness and the not lack of seriousness, but lack of grave unhumor is part of the way I think that we expand ourselves and don't stay in one place.
See, laughter is not something that you develop as an attitude. It's just that if you… I'm sorry.
Oh no, I just think you're making my point.
It is just that if you look at life without any prejudice, you can't help laughing at it.
The second part is, I think that, you know, when I speak to our high school students, I always tell them that the indispensable quality to live a good life is courage. Because what you're describing actually takes a lot of courage. It's not easy to be able to change your ideas. It's not easy to be able to change the pattern of your life, and you have to have a certain amount of courage to allow someone to trample on your ideas, because fear is a very powerful motivator in that drive to self-preservation.
See, we have given lots of significance to various psychological modes and moods that our intelligence takes. We can call it fear, we can call it courage, we can call it love, we can call it hate. But it is just different shades that your mind takes at different times. All this is only because it is in constant compulsive reaction to something around you. In reaction, if somebody is nice to you, you fall in love with them. If somebody is nasty to you, you hate them. Like this, in reaction, so many things are happening. This is a psychological and social phenomena. This is not an existential reality.
Love is not an existential
No,
reality.
it is what's happening within you, it's your emotion.
What is it? Give me an existential reality that doesn't happen within you.
Well, life is. You're alive right now, this is existential.
Well, it's pretty in you, though, the life, right? I mean, I don't know, the modes of life, the only thing that I have a problem with in the way you said it is you said it's just the way your mind. And it seems to me that…
Let me put it
that
this
love
way.
is a profound reality in people's lives, as is thought or learning or all these things that may seem transient but are in fact, I think, deeply rooted in the human experience.
Let me come to that. So it's like this. If your body becomes pleasant, we call this health. You want it? Yes. Hello? Yes. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it pleasure. You want it? Yes. I got a bigger yes for that than health. If your mind becomes pleasant, we call this peace. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it joy. If your emotions become pleasant, we call it love. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it compassion. If your very life energies become pleasant, we call this blissfulness. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it ecstasy. If your surroundings become pleasant, we call this success. Only for success, only to make the surroundings pleasant, there is a challenge because you need the cooperation of all the forces which are here. But to make my body pleasant, mind pleasant, emotion pleasant and energies pleasant is 100% my business. But right now, what is entirely your business, you're trying to handle it like a social phenomena, so it looks so complicated and all the problems associated with it. But actually, you being peaceful, you being loving, you being joyful, every human experience happens from within you. Whether it happens with external stimuli or its own self-start, this is the question. What I'm asking you is, you remember, maybe you don't, you're still a young man.
See, that was pleasant.
So, if you had a car in 1950s, you would park it on the slope and in the morning you need two people to push the car. Later on in 60s, crank start, you need one more person to help you. Today everything is self-start, you have a remote which starts your car these days. Now you're driving a car which doesn't even start, it just goes. So, it's just upgradation of technology. So I'm saying, would you like your peacefulness, your joyfulness, your love, your blissfulness, your ecstasy be on self-start or push-start? This is something you have to make up your mind on.
So, I'm gonna summarize back to you and you tell me if I understood what I heard. You're trying to return people's almost ownership of their own states of being to inside themselves rather than assume that they have to come from the outside or rely on the outside for them to feel the way they feel. This is part one, is that correct?
I would just change one word in that question. It's not a state of being. Me being peaceful is not my state of being. Me being loving is not my state of being. Me being joyful is not my state of being. It's just my thought and emotion playing pleasantly. It's like today, the weather's great. Similarly, my inner climate is doing great right now. This is not a state of being, we must understand this. This being word is being used everywhere as if it's a quantity. People say this being, that being. Being is not some kind of a quantity, it's like I'm speaking. This is an activity, this is in motion. Only if I speak, there is speaking. Only if I walk, there is walking. Only if I be, there is being.
Well, you be.
Huh?
You be, though, right? I can… And so I'm not fully persuaded yet by that distinction, but nonetheless, what is interesting in part is that you do actually spend an enormous amount of time and energy, though, trying to make the external world more pleasant for people. The best example is the River Project, which is a remarkable accomplishment and enormously ambitious, and all about making the external world better.
So just ensuring that tomorrow our children have water to drink, is it very ambitious?
It is today. I mean, you wouldn't think so, but the scale of work that it…
That is there. There is a scale because there is a scale of disaster unleashed by people. But otherwise, to look at it simply, ensuring that there is water for your children to drink, is it very ambitious or is it very natural? People have become so unnatural that they don't care tomorrow's generation whether they have water to drink or not. So, I think it's very natural, it's very human for you to respond to these things. But the essence of work is not in that. These are unfortunate needs of our times in which we exist. If I was here 100 years ago, I wouldn't be talking about rivers for sure. So rivers are not my project. Unfortunately, I see a disaster unfolding, so something has to be done about it. When I just stepped out, this is a 30-day journey where I drove 9,300 kilometers personally myself, and we had 142 events in these 30 days and 182 media interviews, and 162 million people responded. The largest ever movement on the planet. 162 million people responded to this, and we changed the policy. The government policy towards rivers has been changed in India because of this Rally for Rivers.
Yeah, I think that deserves… yes.
No, it's okay. But the important thing is this, why that many people responded? People were asking me, Sadhguru, you got the whole nation together, all the opposition parties, all political rivals, everybody came together for this one thing. I said, see, when I look at it, everybody knew this needs to happen. But they need a fool to bell the cat. They found me.
How is your message, your essential message about life and how to change your life and how to improve your life different in different places? Do you go to Beverly Hills and see a different need than you see
in a tribal village in India? No, not at all. They would like to think they're different, but they're not. They just complicate simple things. If I go to a tribal village, directly those ladies will just come and tell me what's their problem. If I come to Beverly Hills, they go round and round and round, take 3 days to tell me what's the problem.
Welcome to my hood, Sadhguru. And how do you… because I think that this is actually something that all of us do struggle with, this compulsiveness, this inability to let go of things that we know on some level we should be able to let go of. How do you advise us or help us to let go of those things that we know are almost haunting us sometimes?
So let us understand the fundamentals of compulsiveness, where it comes from. See, everything that's physical in this universe, from a single atom to the cosmic nature of things, everything that's physical is naturally in cyclical motion. In atom, things going around. In the cosmos, it's going around, solar system is going around. Our own bodies are cycles. We are born out of the cycles of our mother's bodies. So, the moment you're identified with the physicality of who you are cyclical in nature. What is cyclical is compulsive. What is cyclical has taken a compulsive pattern. It has to do the same things again and again. You try as hard as you want, it will not go. You will give up one and hang on to another. I hope with a Jewish rabbi a joke is allowed.
A Jewish rabbi, actually, a joke is mandatory.
Yes,
so.
okay, that's good. This happened. It once happened that Shankaran Pillai was working in an office and his office colleague asked for a lift, a woman, a young woman. So he took her in the car and he was driving and suddenly he became like an octopus, that his limbs were all over her. So she pushed him away and said, "You fool, I thought you were a decent fellow. What are you trying to do?" He said, "I'm sorry, I gave up smoking." So, if you try to beat compulsiveness with force, you will switch from one cycle to another cycle to another cycle. Keeps happening. Fundamental thing is this, you are so strongly identified with your own physical nature, inevitably you will be cyclical, do whatever you want. So this is why what spiritual means is that your experience of life becomes… something within you becomes larger than your physicality. Physicality includes your thought and emotion. This is…
Yes, no, I mean, what I was going to say, two things. First of all, I think when people talk about whether they're religious or not religious, I actually don't believe that's the distinction. The distinction between people are materialists and non-materialists. That is, those who believe that non-material things are real and spiritual realities are real. And the reason that I bring this up in part is because I know that one of the things we had talked about addressing is the question of mysticism. And it seems to me that both our traditions share a belief that the world that you can see and touch and feel is not all there is. And just now, as I understood you, you were appealing to the non-physical parts of ourselves as a sort of antidote to the over-reliance on the physical part of cyclical compulsiveness.
See, it's not a question of…
just say yes to one of my questions. Tell me right, you got it right, Rabbi. Okay. I'm working here.
Yes, but… Yes, but the thing is, it's not something that we have to believe in. See, none of us were born like this as we are. We came like this, we became like this. This is just accumulation of the food that we've eaten, or it's just a piece of the planet. Most people don't get this point till you bury them. Even that in Los Angeles I feel is difficult because I heard they're being buried in a concrete vault. So even in burial, you will still not know that you're part of the earth. So this is something that you gathered. Anything that you gather, at the most you can claim is yours. You cannot claim it's me. I can say, this glass of water is my glass of water. But if I say this is me, you know that I'm a case. You know for sure. So if you say this is my body, yes, it is right now, till we bury you. But if you say this is me, you're a case. Your only comfort is everybody around you is a case. This is how it is in an asylum. The only nutcase is the doctor.
How do you shift that perspective, though? How do you learn to see yourself as continuous with everyone and everything?
So it's like this. I'm agreeing with that.
We're good.
See, this is my body, that's your body, distinctly separate, at least right now. Till both of us are buried, till then, this is my body, that's your body, very clear. This is my mind and that's your mind, very clear. But there is no such thing as my life and your life. There's no such thing. This is like, I'm sure at some stage in your life, when you were in school at least, you blew some soap bubbles, huh? So that's my bubble, this is your bubble. Poop, it goes. There is no such thing as this is my air and this is your air. This is a living cosmos. You captured some, I captured some. How significant a life you become. When I say significance, not how significant you are in the society or in the world. It's not about that. As a life you become significant because you have captured that much of life which overwhelms the puniness of your own mind and physical body. Within you, the life that you've captured is a larger dimension than the body that you have gathered and the information that you've gathered in the form of your mind. When the life that you are is bigger than your mind and your body, no teaching is needed. You're simply conscious about that, that's all. It's not that you believe that, that's a living reality for you. So my whole work is to bring people to a dimension of experience where the life that they are is larger than the mind that they are. Life that they are is larger than the body that they are. So you don't have to give a teaching or a kind of a belief system. Naturally, what is most dominant becomes you, within you.
And the way that you bring people to that dimension of being or dimension of existence is…
See, as there is a science and technology for external well-being, there is a whole science and technology for inner well-being. The problem that happens in every tradition is, over a period of time, generation after generation, it gathers moss. So much frill it gathered, nobody knows where the skirt is.
There was a French Catholic writer, Charles Piguet, who said everything begins in mysticism and ends in politics. And I think that in religious traditions, that's exactly…
Yes.
There's a great deal of truth to that. So how do you scrape the barnacles off the boat or the moss off the tradition and identify that kernel which can actually expand people's sense of what they are a part of, but what they are only a small part of?
I think I came with a huge advantage that I'm completely uneducated, refuse to be educated. Why I'm saying this is, it is not easy to remain uneducated. Because from the moment you're born, the moment somebody sees a child, all the adults want to pounce upon the child, wanting to teach something that's not worked in their life. Parents, teachers, every kind of people. The moment they see a child, they want to teach the child something. It's very clear. When you look at the child, the exuberance and the joy that the child has and the adults are the way they are, obviously it's not worked for them, whatever they know. But they want to teach it to the child. So I refused this one influence on me. I just remained as I was, uninfluenced by parents, teachers, society, religion around me, politics around me. I kept myself away from that. If you keep yourself away from identifying yourself with just about anything around you, anything, including your genetics, your society, religion, politics, economics, whatever is happening around you, if you're not identified with anything, it is natural for human intelligence to find its way. Nobody has to teach anybody anything. If you just make sure children don't get identified with you, hello? That you don't want that, you want them identified with you. Because it's your legacy, it's not a new life, it's your legacy. You want to live after you're dead. You want them to be just like you in so many different ways. If you don't have this problem, if you leave them alone, just nurture them so that they're not influenced by anything, you will see the world will be full of mystics.
I'm not persuaded. First of all, okay, there are three things that you said that I'm not completely persuaded of. One is that you never learned anything. When you say you're uneducated, you spoke a language, you knew your neighborhood that you lived in, you learned how to eat and what foods to make, you learned lots of things from the people around you. There's no way you could have survived had you not learned. That's one. Wait, I'm not done. Number two, I want you to know that when I had a child, I didn't want to teach her the ways that I was that didn't work for me. I rather wanted to teach her the joy that I found in the world and the beauty. And I teach her poetry and I teach her wonder. And I think a lot of what I teach her expands her. I'm sure I've taught her some things that she would say, gee, I wish you hadn't taught me that. But I really do believe that most parents want to teach their children not the things that didn't work for them, but rather the things that they found in the world that are extraordinary and wonderful.
No,